The sun was just beginning to rise over Millbrook, casting long shadows across empty streets that had seen better days, storefronts with faded signs, sidewalks cracked from winters that nobody had the budget to repair, a town that progress had quietly forgotten. Officer Tom Reynolds was 3 months from retirement when he saw them. 2 little girls sitting on the curb outside the old hardware store. The older one, maybe 10 years old, had her arm wrapped protectively around a toddler who couldn't have been more than 3. Both were wrapped in blankets that had once been blue but were now a dingy gray, fraying at the edges. Tom slowed his patrol car, that instinct he'd developed over 30 years in uniform suddenly alert. Something wasn't right. He parked and approached slowly, the way you do when you don't want to startle someone who might already be scared. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching down to their level. "I'm Officer Reynolds. What are you girls doing out here so early?" The older girl looked up at him with eyes that seemed far too old for her face, eyes that had seen too much, carried too much. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her jacket, 2 sizes too small, had a tear in the sleeve. "We were waiting," she said simply. "Waiting for what, sweetheart?" "For someone to notice." The words hit Tom like a punch to the chest. He'd heard a lot of things in his career, but that particular brand of quiet desperation, that was new. "I'm noticing now," Tom said carefully. "Can you tell me your name?" "Emily. Emily Carter. And this is my sister, Lily." The little one, Lily, clutched a stuffed rabbit that was missing one ear. She didn't speak, just stared at Tom with wide, uncertain eyes. "Okay, Emily. Where are your parents? Where's home?" Emily's jaw tightened slightly. That look kids get when they're trying very hard not to cry. "Home is 3 blocks that way, but we can't go back yet." "Why not?" Emily took a breath, and Tom saw her hands shake slightly as she pulled the blanket tighter around her sister. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, but every word was clear. "My dad gave something to her, and she got worse." Tom's blood ran cold. His training kicked in immediately, the protocols for exactly this kind of situation flooding his mind. But underneath the procedure, underneath the professional calm he'd learned to maintain, there was rage and fear and a desperate hope that he'd misunderstood what this 10-year-old girl was trying to tell him. "Emily," he said, his voice very gentle, very controlled, "I need you to tell me exactly what you mean. What did your dad give to Lily?" I don't know exactly. He said it was medicine from a video he watched, but she started coughing more, and then she got really hot and she wouldn't stop crying, and he didn't know what to do, and Her voice broke completely. Tom's radio was already in his hand. "Dispatch, this is Reynolds. I need an ambulance at 5th and Main, outside Miller's Hardware. I have 2 minor children, possible medical emergency. I also need child protective services and a supervisor. Code 2. The radio crackled back immediately. "Copy that, Reynolds. Units en route. ETA 4 minutes. Tom looked at the little girls in front of him. Emily trying so hard to be brave. Lily clutching her one-eared rabbit like it was the only solid thing in a world that had stopped making sense. "You did the right thing, Emily," Tom said, and he meant it with everything he had. "You were right to wait for someone to notice. And I'm here now, okay? We're going to make sure Lily gets help. We're going to make sure you're both safe." Emily nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "I tried to take care of her. I tried really hard, but I'm only 10. I didn't know what to do." "Hey," Tom said firmly, "you're 10 years old. Taking care of your little sister isn't your job. That's what adults are for. And right now the adults are going to step up." In the distance, sirens began to wail. The town of Millbrook was waking up, and before the day was over, everyone would know that something terrible had happened to the Carter girls. But Tom Reynolds, sitting on that cracked sidewalk with 2 children who'd been failed by every system meant to protect them, knew something else. Nobody had asked the right questions yet. Nobody knew what had actually happened, and the truth, whatever it was going to be far more complicated than anyone expected. The ambulance arrived first, lights flashing, no sirens this early in the morning. 2 paramedics jumped out, a woman with kind eyes and a younger man carrying a medical kit. "Hi, sweethearts," the woman said, kneeling beside Lily. "My name's Sarah. Can I take a look at you?" Lily shrank back against Emily, who tightened her protective grip. "It's okay, Lilybug," Emily whispered. "They're here to help." Officer Reynolds stepped aside with the male paramedic, his voice low and urgent. "The older girl says the father gave the toddler something, some kind of medicine from a video. The child reportedly got worse. I don't have details yet." The paramedic's expression shifted immediately from routine to alert. "How long ago?" "Unknown. I just found them." Within minutes, the scene transformed. A second patrol car arrived, then a supervisor's vehicle, then an unmarked sedan with a woman in a blazer who introduced herself as Karen Mills from Child Protective Services. Emily watched it all with growing confusion. She'd expected help, but this felt like something else, something bigger, something scary. "Emily?" Karen approached carefully, clipboard in hand but eyes gentle. "I'm Karen. I work with families who need extra support. Can you and I talk for just a minute?" Emily nodded, though her hand never left Lily's. "You told Officer Reynolds that your dad gave Lily something. Can you tell me more about that?" "He said it was medicine," Emily repeated, her voice small. For her cough. She's been coughing for a week, really bad at night, and Dad said we couldn't afford the doctor, so he found something online. A video about natural remedies. Karen wrote carefully. Do you know what was in it? Some kind of tea, I think, with herbs. He made it in the kitchen. It smelled weird, strong, like dirt and mint together. He gave her a whole cup of it. When was this? Last night, around bedtime, and she drank it because Dad said it would help, but then Emily's voice cracked. She got really hot, and she threw up, and she couldn't stop crying, and Dad kept saying it was supposed to work. It worked in the video, but it wasn't working, and I didn't know what to do. Okay, Karen said gently. You're doing great, Emily. You're being so brave. But Emily saw the look that passed between Karen and Officer Reynolds. The same look the paramedics had exchanged. The look that meant adults thought something terrible had happened. Is Lily going to be okay? Emily asked, her voice barely audible. The paramedics are taking very good care of her, Karen said. They're going to take her to the hospital just to make sure everything's all right. And you're going to come with me to the station where it's warm and safe, and we can talk more, okay? What about Dad? Karen hesitated. We're going to talk to your dad, too. Is he in trouble? Another hesitation. We just need to understand what happened. But Emily understood enough from what wasn't being said. The way the adults kept their voices low. The way they looked at Lily like she was fragile, breakable. The way no one would quite meet Emily's eyes when she asked about her father. By the time the sun was fully up, Fifth and Main had become a scene. Neighbors emerging from houses, standing on porches, whispering. Mrs. Martinez from the corner store. Old Mr. Peterson walking his dog. Tommy Henderson on his way to school, stopping to stare. The town was waking up to a story that was already being written in people's minds, formed from fragments and assumptions, and that terrible phrase Emily had said without understanding how it would sound. My dad gave something to her. In the ambulance, paramedic Sarah checked Lily's vitals while the little girl whimpered softly, still clutching her one-eared rabbit. Elevated temperature, 101.2, Sarah called to her partner. Mild dehydration, no visible external injuries, stomach irritation consistent with ingestion of something harsh. What did she ingest? Unknown, waiting for analysis. At the police station, Officer Reynolds sat in his supervisor's office, running through everything he knew, which wasn't much, but was enough to trigger every protective protocol in the book. And 3 blocks away, in a small house with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn, James Carter woke up on the couch where he'd finally fallen asleep around 4 a.m., his head pounding, his hands still shaking from the panic of the night before. His daughters weren't in their room, the blankets from their beds were gone, and his phone, he'd forgotten to charge it again, was dead. James had no idea that in less than an hour, 2 police officers would be knocking on his door, and his entire world would fracture in ways he couldn't yet imagine, all because he'd tried to help his daughter, all because he'd been too ashamed to admit he didn't know what he was doing, all because he'd been alone for too long. The Millbrook police station had a room specifically designed for children. Soft chairs, pastel walls, a basket of toys in the corner, and posters of puppies and kittens that were supposed to make scared kids feel safe. Emily sat in a chair that was still too big for her, her legs dangling, her hands gripping the armrests. Karen Mills sat across from her, a gentle smile on her face that didn't quite hide the concern in her eyes. Officer Reynolds stood by the door, not hovering, just present. Emily, Karen began softly, I know this morning has been scary and confusing, but I want you to know that you're not in any trouble. Nobody's mad at you. We just need to understand what's been happening at home so we can help. Does that make sense? Emily nodded, though nothing about today made sense. Can you tell me about last night? Start from the beginning. What do you remember? Emily took a shaky breath. Lily was coughing. She's been coughing for days, maybe a week. It got worse at night. She couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. Dad couldn't sleep. Did your dad try to get her to a doctor? He talked about it, but Emily's voice got quieter. Money's been tight since Dad lost his job at the distribution center. He kept saying we'd go next week when he got paid from his delivery shifts, but next week kept not coming. Karen made notes but kept her eyes on Emily. So what happened last night? Dad was on his computer for a long time. He was watching videos about home remedies for kids' coughs. Natural medicine, he called it. He said people did this stuff all the time before there were doctors and pills. Do you remember what the video said to do? Emily squeezed her eyes shut, trying to remember. Something about herbs. He wrote down a list and went to that health food store on Oak Street, the one that's always empty. He came back with little bags of dried plants. He boiled water and put them in, and the whole kitchen smelled weird. What kind of weird? Strong, like spicy and earthy. It made my nose itch. Dad kept checking the video on his phone, measuring things, but his hands were shaking. They shake a lot now, and I think maybe he got the amounts wrong. Karen leaned forward slightly. Did he give the tea to Lily right away? He let it cool first. Put it in her favorite cup, the one with the cartoon cat. He told her it would taste bad, but it would make her feel better. She trusted him, so she drank it. All of it. Emily's voice cracked. She made a face face like it tasted awful, but she finished it because Dad said to. And then, take your time, sweetheart. About an hour later, she started crying. Really crying. Not normal crying. And she was so hot. I touched her forehead and it was burning. And then she threw up all over her bed. Dad panicked. He tried to give her water, but she couldn't keep it down. He called the number from the video, but nobody answered. It was the middle of the night. What did your dad do then? He just froze. He kept saying, it's supposed to work. It worked in the video. What did I do wrong? Over and over. And I tried to help Lily, tried to clean her up, but I didn't know what to do either. I'm just a kid. Tears were streaming down Emily's face now. I told Dad we should call 911, but he said we couldn't afford the ambulance. He said maybe she just needed to sleep it off, but she wasn't sleeping. She was just crying and burning up, and I was so scared. Karen handed Emily a tissue. So what did you do? I waited until Dad fell asleep on the couch. He does that a lot when he's stressed. Just sort of shuts down. And I got Lily dressed, wrapped us both in blankets, and we left. You walked to 5th and Main? Emily nodded. I didn't know where else to go. The hospital's too far to walk with Lily, but I knew police officers drove through downtown in the morning. I remembered seeing Officer Reynolds' car there before, so I just sat there and waited. Officer Reynolds, who'd been silent until now, spoke quietly. You did exactly the right thing, Emily. Karen set down her pen. Emily, I need to ask you something important. Has your dad ever hurt you or Lily on purpose? Has he ever hit you or yelled at you or scared you? No. Emily's answer was immediate and firm. No, he's not like that. He's confused a lot and tired and sad. Ever since Mom died 2 years ago, he's been different. Like part of him is missing. Different how? He forgets things. He sleeps too much. He doesn't eat much. Sometimes I talk to him and it's like he doesn't hear me. Like he's far away even when he's sitting right there. Emily wiped her eyes. But he's not mean. He's never been mean. He's just lost. Karen and Reynolds exchanged a look that Emily was learning to recognize. The look adults give each other when they're trying to decide something important about your life. Okay, Emily, Karen said gently. Thank you for being so honest and brave. I'm going to check on Lily at the hospital, and Officer Reynolds is going to stay with you. We're also going to talk to your dad, and then we're all going to figure out what happens next. Emily's voice was very small. Are you going to take us away from him? Karen didn't lie. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but I promise you, whatever we decide, it'll be because we want you and Lily to be safe and healthy. That's all any of us want. It wasn't the answer Emily wanted, but at least it was honest. At Millbrook General Hospital, Dr. Patricia Chen stood in the pediatric examination room, reviewing the preliminary reports on the small patient who'd arrived an hour ago, Lily Carter, 3 years old, brought in by paramedics after her sister reported the father gave her something that made her worse. The phrase alone had triggered every emergency protocol in the system, but what Dr. Chen was seeing on the medical charts didn't match what everyone was bracing for. Temperatures down to 99.8, the nurse reported, checking the monitors. Fluids are helping. She's keeping down small sips of water now. Dr. Chen examined Lily gently, listening to her lungs, checking her throat, palpating her stomach. The little girl whimpered but didn't pull away, too exhausted to protest. Lungs are congested but clear of obstruction. Throat is inflamed, consistent with severe coughing. Stomach lining is irritated, but Dr. Chen paused, frowning slightly. No signs of caustic burns, no bleeding, no tissue damage. She turned to the attending nurse. What did the toxicology screening show? The nurse handed her a tablet. Herbal compounds. Preliminary results show high concentrations of eucalyptus, peppermint, ginger root, and, she scrolled down, something called whorehound, all common in traditional cough remedies. Dosage? Far too concentrated for a child her size, probably 3 to 4 times the appropriate amount. Dr. Chen exhaled slowly. So not poison, just incorrectly prepared. Correct. The combination wasn't inherently dangerous. People use these herbs all the time in teas and natural remedies, but whoever made this didn't account for her age or weight. The eucalyptus and ginger in those concentrations would cause nausea, vomiting, elevated temperature. Essentially, her body was trying to reject something too strong for her system. Dr. Chen looked at Lily, who was now dozing fitfully, her one-eared rabbit tucked under her chin, a child who'd been made sick, not by malice, but by ignorance. Any signs of intentional harm? The nurse asked quietly. Bruising, old injuries, anything that would suggest pattern of concern? Dr. Chen had checked thoroughly. None. She's underweight for her age, which suggests inadequate nutrition over time. Mild diaper rash that's been untreated. Her teeth haven't been brushed regularly, but no physical trauma, no defensive wounds, nothing that indicates violence. She made notes in the chart, choosing her words carefully. Every word would be scrutinized by police, by social services, by lawyers potentially. Diagnosis: acute gastric distress and fever induced by ingestion of overly concentrated herbal preparation. Not appropriate for pediatric use. No evidence of malicious intent. Appears to be misguided attempt at home remedy. The nurse looked relieved. So she's she's going to be okay? Physically? Yes. We'll keep her for observation. Continue fluids. Monitor her temperature. She should recover fully within 24 hours. Dr. Chen set down her tablet. But the bigger question isn't medical. It's why a parent was making home remedies instead of bringing a sick child to a doctor. Karen Mills arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, her expression tense. Dr. Chen met her in the hallway outside Lily's room. How is she? Stable. Recovering. She ingested an herbal tea that was far too concentrated for her size. It made her sick, but it won't cause lasting damage. Karen's shoulders dropped slightly with relief. So it wasn't, we were preparing for, I know what you were preparing for, Dr. Chen said gently. But this isn't that. This is a parent who didn't know what they were doing, made a mistake, and a child suffered the consequences. Serious? Yes. Criminal? That's not my call, but medically speaking, this was negligence born of ignorance, not intent to harm. Karen pulled out her phone, already texting Officer Reynolds with the update. The father claims he followed a video online about natural remedies. That tracks with what we found. Every ingredient in that tea is readily available at health food stores and commonly marketed as natural cough relief. The problem is dosage and preparation. What works for an adult can be dangerous for a toddler, and clearly he didn't know that, or didn't have anyone to tell him, Karen added quietly. Dr. Chen nodded, which brings us back to the real question. Where was the support system? Where were the resources that should have caught this before it became an emergency? Inside the room, Lily stirred, her small voice calling out weakly. Emmy. Karen stepped in immediately, keeping her voice soft and reassuring. Emmy's okay, sweetheart. She's with Officer Reynolds. She's safe, and you're going to be just fine. Lily's eyes, the same brown as her sister's, filled with tears. Tummy hurts. I know. The medicine the doctors gave you is going to help. You just need to rest, okay? Want Emmy. I'll bring her to see you very soon, I promise. Karen stayed with Lily until the little girl drifted back to sleep, then stepped into the hallway where Dr. Chen was updating charts. What happens now? The doctor asked. Now I have to go talk to the father, Karen said, dreading the conversation ahead, and figure out whether this family needs to be separated or just desperately needs help they've never received. Dr. Chen looked through the window at the sleeping child. For what it's worth, my medical opinion is that this child hasn't been intentionally harmed. She's been neglected. Inadequate nutrition, poor hygiene, delayed medical care. But there's a difference between a parent who doesn't care and a parent who doesn't know how. The system doesn't always recognize that difference, Karen said. Then maybe, Dr. Chen replied, it's time the system learned. James Carter was searching under the couch cushions for his phone charger when the knock came at the door. 3 firm raps. Official. Authoritative. His heart sank immediately. That instinct people develop when they're already on the edge, when one more thing might be the thing that finally breaks them. He opened the door to find 2 police officers on his porch. One he recognized, Officer Reynolds, who sometimes patrolled their neighborhood. The other was younger, a woman with sharp eyes and a hand resting casually near her belt. Mr. Carter? James Carter? Reynolds asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Yes. What's wrong? Did something happen? May we come inside, sir? James stepped back, his mind racing through possibilities. Had someone broken into his car? Was there a problem with his expired registration? Had one of his delivery gigs complained about, where are your daughters, Mr. Carter? The question stopped him cold. What? There. He turned toward the hallway, toward their bedroom. Emily? Lily? Silence. He moved quickly down the hall, his limp more pronounced when he was anxious. The bedroom door was open. The beds were empty, stripped of their blankets. Lily's stuffed rabbit, the one she never went anywhere without, was gone. Panic seized his chest. Where are they? What happened? Are they okay? Your daughters are safe, Reynolds said carefully, following him into the living room. They're with Child Protective Services. The words didn't make sense. James stared at him, his hands beginning to tremble, the tremor that had gotten worse over the past year, the one he couldn't afford to get checked out. I don't understand. Why would they be with Mr. Carter? When was the last time you saw Emily and Lily? James tried to think through the fog that had become his constant companion. Last night, late, around 3, maybe 4 in the morning. Lily had been sick, she was finally sleeping, and I fell asleep on the couch. I just woke up maybe an hour ago and his voice rose with fresh panic. What happened? Where are my girls? The female officer spoke for the first time. Mr. Carter, your daughter Emily was found on 5th and Main this morning with her sister. She told officers that you gave Lily something that made her sick. James felt the room tilt. The tea. Oh God, the tea. Is Lily okay? Is she? She's at Millbrook General Hospital receiving treatment. Her condition is stable. I need to see her. I need to... James reached for his jacket, but Reynolds stepped slightly into his path. Mr. Carter, we need you to come to the station with us to answer some questions first. Questions about what? I was trying to help her. She's been coughing for over a week, and I couldn't afford the clinic, and I found this video online about natural remedies that people have used for centuries. Sir, I understand you're upset, but we need you to calm down and come with us. James's breathing was rapid now, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The younger officer's posture had shifted, more alert, more ready. "Am I under arrest?" James managed to ask. "No, sir. We just need to talk. But I have to ask, do you have any medical conditions we should be aware of?" James laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Yeah, several. None of them treated because I can't afford a doctor. Is that what you need to know?" Reynolds' expression softened slightly. "Mr. Carter, I'm going to be straight with you. Your daughter is in the hospital because of something you gave her. Child Protective Services has been called. There's going to be an investigation. The best thing you can do right now is come with us, answer questions honestly, and cooperate fully. Do you understand?" James understood. He understood that his world was falling apart. He understood that trying to help had somehow made everything worse. He understood that he'd failed, again, in the one job that mattered most. "Can I at least see them, Emily and Lily? Please, they must be terrified." Reynolds exchanged a glance with his partner. "That's going to be up to Child Protective Services. Right now, we need to focus on getting your statement." James grabbed his jacket with shaking hands, his mind spinning. The video had said the herbs were safe, natural, used for generations. The website looked legitimate. The testimonials were glowing. He'd measured everything carefully, or at least he'd tried to. His hands had been shaking so badly, and the instructions were confusing, and he'd been so tired, so desperately tired. "I didn't mean to hurt her," he said quietly as they walked to the patrol car. "I would never hurt my girls. I was just trying to make her better." "That's what we need to talk about," Reynolds said, opening the car door. Neighbors were watching now. Mrs. Martinez from across the street. Old Mr. E. Peterson with his garden hose frozen mid-spray. The Henderson kid on his bike staring openly. James Carter, widower, father, man who'd been slowly drowning for 2 years, climbed into the back of a police car while his neighborhood watched and wondered what terrible thing he'd done. And in the police station miles away, Emily sat in a chair too big for her, waiting to find out if she'd just lost her father forever. All because she'd been brave enough to ask for help. All because sometimes asking for help looks like the end of everything you know. Chapter 6. The Silent House. Karen Mills stood on the porch of the Carter house, a camera in one hand and a checklist in the other. She'd done this hundreds of times, documented homes, assessed living conditions, made decisions that would change families forever, but it never got easier. She unlocked the door with the key James had reluctantly handed over and stepped inside. The house smelled stale, like windows that hadn't been opened in weeks and laundry that needed doing. But it didn't smell dangerous. It didn't smell violent. It just smelled tired. Karen moved methodically, taking photos, making notes. Living room, couch with a flattened cushion where someone clearly slept regularly. Pill bottles on the coffee table, over-the-counter pain relievers, the kind you take when you can't afford prescription medication. A laptop sitting open with 17 browser tabs still loaded. Karen leaned closer. All of them were about children's health, natural remedies for cough, safe herbs for kids, how to treat fever without doctor. Kitchen, dishes in the sink, not rotting but unwashed. The refrigerator held milk 3 days past expiration, half a loaf of bread, peanut butter, and very little else. No fresh vegetables, no fruit. The freezer had 2 frozen dinners and a bag of chicken nuggets. On the counter, a notebook with measurements written in shaky handwriting. 2 teaspoons eucalyptus, 1 teaspoon horehound. Boil 10 minutes. Cool before serving. Crossed out and rewritten. Crossed out again. The desperation visible in every erased line. Bathroom, children's toothbrushes. Worn, needing replacement. Generic brand children's medicine, nearly empty. A prescription bottle with James's name dated 8 months ago with 2 pills remaining. Instructions read, take daily for nerve pain. He'd been stretching a 30-day prescription for 8 months. Children's bedroom. 2 twin beds, neatly made despite the missing blankets. Toys organized in bins. Emily's work probably. Drawings taped to the wall. Stick figures holding hands under a sun. My family, written in crayon. 4 figures. 1 crossed out gently, tenderly. Mom. On Emily's nightstand, a stack of library books about being a big sister, helping at home, taking care of younger siblings. Books no 10-year-old should need to read. Master bedroom, unmade bed, laundry piled in the corner. On the nightstand, a framed photo of a woman with kind eyes and brown hair, Sarah Carter. Next to it, a grief counseling pamphlet, unopened. A stack of bills marked past due in red stamps. A job application printed but never filled out. Karen sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. This wasn't a crime scene. This was a disaster in slow motion. A man drowning so gradually that nobody noticed until he went under completely. She pulled out her phone and called Officer Reynolds. What are you finding? He asked. Evidence of poverty. Evidence of inadequate resources. Evidence of someone trying desperately to hold things together and failing. She paused. Tom, there's nothing here that suggests malice. Just overwhelming struggle. Does that change anything? Karen looked at the photo of Sarah Carter, forever smiling, forever gone. It changes everything and nothing. These children still aren't safe in this environment, but the question isn't whether we remove them. It's whether we help rebuild what's broken. She ended the call and continued documenting every empty cabinet, every unpaid bill, every desperate internet search, every piece of evidence that James Carter hadn't been hiding abuse. He'd been hiding the fact that he was completely, utterly lost. The last thing Karen photographed was a sticky note on the refrigerator in Emily's careful child handwriting. Dad, remember to eat, remember your medicine, remember we love you. A 10-year-old reminding her father to survive. Karen closed the notebook, locked the door behind her, and sat in her car for 5 full minutes before she could bring herself to drive away. Some houses you document show you evil. This house showed her something worse. Good people failing because nobody taught them how to ask for help. Chapter 7. Neighbors Who Didn't See. Officer Reynolds spent the afternoon knocking on doors along Maple Street, notebook in hand, asking questions that made people uncomfortable. First stop, the Martinez house. Maria Martinez answered with flour on her hands, the smell of fresh bread wafting from inside. Her expression shifted from friendly to guarded the moment Reynolds identified himself. It's about the Carters, isn't it? She said before he could ask. Everyone's talking. When was the last time you saw James or the girls? Maria wiped her hands on her apron. Maybe 2 weeks ago? Emily was walking Lily in that old stroller. I waved. She waved back. Did anything seem unusual? A long pause. Emily looked tired. But kids get tired, right? And James, I haven't seen him in months, actually. He used to come to the bakery every Saturday morning for cinnamon rolls. The girls loved them, but after Sarah died, he just stopped coming. Did you ever reach out, ask if they needed anything? Maria's face flushed. I thought about it. I told myself I should take over a meal, check in, but time passes, you know? And I figured if they needed help, they'd ask. Reynolds wrote that down. Did Emily ever ask for anything? No, she was always so polite, so self-sufficient. I just assumed James had things under control. Second stop, Mr. Peterson, 3 houses down. The elderly man was watering his roses, the same roses that had won the neighborhood garden competition 3 years running. He set down the hose when Reynolds approached. Terrible business, Mr. Peterson said immediately. That poor family. Did you notice anything concerning about the Carters? Well, the lawn got overgrown. Hasn't been mowed in weeks. And sometimes I'd see Emily outside at odd hours, early morning, late evening, just walking Lily around the block. Seems strange for a kid her age to have so much responsibility. Did you offer to help? Mow the lawn, perhaps? Talk to James? Mr. Peterson's shoulders stiffened defensively. I mind my own business, officer. James Carter is a proud man. After Sarah passed, folks tried to help. Church ladies bringing casseroles, neighbors offering to watch the girls. He turned everyone away, said he was fine. So eventually, people stopped asking. When did people stop asking? Maybe 6 months after the funeral? A year at most? And in the year since then, did anyone check if he was still fine? Silence. Then, I suppose we all just assumed. Third stop, the Henderson family. Mrs. Henderson answered with her son Tommy hovering behind her. She looked worried, guilty even before Reynolds asked his first question. I saw Emily at the grocery store 2 weeks ago, she offered. She was counting change at the checkout, exact coins for a loaf of bread and peanut butter. The cashier had to wait while she counted it twice. I thought it was sweet that James was teaching her about money. Did it occur to you that she might be shopping alone out of necessity? Mrs. Henderson's eyes filled with tears. It should have. God, it should have. But I was in a hurry and I didn't think about it. I saw what I wanted to see, a responsible kid learning life skills, not a 10-year-old buying groceries because her father couldn't. Tommy spoke up quietly. Emily missed a lot of school this year, Mom. Remember when you asked why she wasn't in class picture day? Oh my God, Mrs. Henderson whispered. I forgot about that. Fourth stop, Pastor Williams from Maplewood Community Church. The pastor met Reynolds at the church office, his expression heavy with regret. James stopped attending about 18 months ago, he said. I called a few times, left messages, even drove by the house twice, but he never answered. I should have tried harder. Why didn't you? Pride, maybe. Mine, his. I'm not sure. I told myself he knew where to find us if he needed help, that forcing the issue would push him away further. Pastor Williams shook his head. But the truth is, I had a full congregation to worry about. It was easier to let one silent family slip through the cracks. Reynolds closed his notebook. He'd heard enough. Back at the station, Karen was waiting. What did you find? She asked. What I always find in these cases, Reynolds said wearily. A whole community that noticed pieces but never put the puzzle together. Everyone saw something. Nobody did anything. Karen nodded, unsurprised. The bystander effect at the neighborhood level. Everyone assumes someone else is helping. Or everyone assumes that if help was really needed, they'd be asked directly, which assumes the person drowning has the strength to call for help. Reynolds thought of James Carter, hands shaking, pride wounded, hope depleted, trying desperately to care for 2 small children while barely holding himself together. Nobody taught him how to ask, Reynolds said quietly. And nobody taught the neighborhood how to see, Karen added. They sat in silence, 2 professionals who'd seen this story play out too many times in too many towns. Families falling apart in plain sight, while neighbors watered their roses and assumed someone else was paying attention. Chapter 8. The Invisible disease. James Carter sat in the interview room at Millbrook Police Station, his hands resting on the table where everyone could see them trembling. He'd been here for 2 hours, answered the same questions 5 different ways, told the truth until it felt like a confession. Karen Mills sat across from him, her expression neutral but not unkind. Officer Reynolds stood by the door. "Mr. Carter," Karen said gently, "I need to understand your situation completely. You mentioned earlier that you have medical conditions, untreated ones. Can you explain?" James's jaw tightened. This was the part he'd hidden from everyone, the neighbors, the church, even from Emily as much as he could. "About 18 months ago, I started having tremors in my hands, just small ones at first. I thought it was stress from losing Sarah, from the job, from everything. But it got worse." He held up his shaking hands as evidence. "Then came the confusion. I'd forget conversations, lose track of time, find myself staring at nothing for minutes, hours maybe. I'd start tasks and couldn't remember why I'd started them. Emily would ask me something and I'd have to ask her to repeat it 3-4 times before it made sense." Karen made notes. "Did you see a doctor?" "Once. A free clinic about 40 minutes away. The doctor said I needed neurological testing, possible early onset Parkinson's, or maybe a different degenerative condition. He gave me a referral to a specialist." "Did you follow up?" James laughed bitterly. "The appointment would have cost $600 just for the consultation. I didn't have $600. I didn't have $60. So I told myself I'd go when things got better financially. But things never got better." "What about the prescription you had? For nerve pain?" "That was from before, from a work injury. 30 pills, meant to last a month. I made them last 8 months by cutting them in half, then quarters, taking them only on days when I couldn't function otherwise, which was most days lately." Reynolds spoke from the door. "Why didn't you apply for assistance? Medicaid? Disability?" "I tried," James said, his voice cracking. "Do you know how complicated those applications are? I'd sit down to fill them out and the words would swim on the page. My hands would shake so badly I couldn't write legibly, and every form required documentation I didn't have, medical records I couldn't afford to get, proof of disability from doctors I couldn't afford to see." He rubbed his face with trembling hands. "It's a system designed for people who can already navigate systems. I couldn't navigate getting dressed some mornings." Karen leaned forward. "What about Sarah? Before she died, did she handle these things?" "Everything. Sarah managed all the medical stuff, the bills, the appointments, the paperwork. She was the organized one, the strong one." His voice broke. "When she died, I didn't just lose my wife. I lost the person who kept our life functioning, and I didn't know how to do any of it alone." "Did you seek grief counseling?" "I went to 2 sessions, free ones the hospital offered, but sitting in a circle talking about feelings didn't teach me how to fill out insurance forms, or remember to buy groceries, or understand why my own brain was betraying me." Karen's expression had softened considerably. "Mr. Carter, when did you last have a full meal?" James tried to remember. "I don't know. Yesterday? 2 days ago? Emily makes sure the girls eat. I just forget sometimes." "And when did you last sleep through the night?" "I don't remember sleeping through a night since Sarah died." Karen exchanged a long look with Reynolds. This wasn't the interview they'd expected to conduct. "James," Karen said carefully, "I'm going to ask you something and I need you to be honest. When you made that tea for Lily, did you understand that you might be making it wrong?" "I knew I might be," James admitted. "My hands were shaking so badly I could barely measure. The instructions said 1 teaspoon, but the numbers kept blurring, and I was so tired I could barely think straight. But Lily was coughing so hard she couldn't sleep, and I didn't have money for the doctor, and the video said this was safe, natural, used for generations." He looked directly at Karen, tears streaming down his face. "I knew I might mess it up, but trying something, even with shaking hands and a confused brain, seemed better than doing nothing. I was wrong. God, I was so wrong, but I didn't know what else to do." The room fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. "Mr. Carter," Reynolds said quietly, "why didn't you call 911 when Lily got worse?" "Because I couldn't afford the ambulance. Because I was terrified they'd take my girls away. Because I thought if I could just make it to morning, everything would be okay." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I thought I could fix it. I thought I could still be the father they needed. But I can't. I haven't been able to for a long time." Karen closed her notebook slowly. "You're right," she said softly. "You can't do this alone, and you shouldn't have to." Chapter 9. The Mistake. Karen opened her laptop and turned it toward James. "Can you show us the video you watched?" James's trembling fingers navigated to his browser history. He clicked on a link, and a video began playing, professional looking, with soft lighting, and a woman in a white coat standing in a kitchen filled with herbs and natural remedies. "Natural Wellness with Dr. Melissa Green," the banner read. The woman smiled warmly at the camera. "Today we're making a traditional herbal tea that's been used for centuries to soothe children's coughs. Completely natural, completely safe, and much gentler than over-the-counter medications filled with chemicals." Karen and Reynolds watched as Dr. Green listed ingredients: eucalyptus leaves, peppermint, ginger root, horehound, honey. She demonstrated measuring approximately approximately 1 teaspoon of each, and steeping in boiling water. For children ages 3 to 7, use half the adult dosage, she said cheerfully. Your little ones will be sleeping peacefully in no time. The video had 847,000 views, thousands of comments. This saved my daughter. Works better than anything from the pharmacy. Thank you, Dr. Green. Karen paused the video. Did you follow these instructions exactly? James shook his head miserably. I tried. I wrote everything down. Went to that health food store on Oak Street, the one with all the bins of dried herbs. The woman working there barely spoke English. I showed her my list. She pointed me to the bins. I scooped what I thought were the right amounts. He pulled out his phone, showing them photos he'd taken of the herb bins. The labels were handwritten, some smudged, some misspelled. I couldn't tell eucalyptus from peppermint just by looking. They're all just dried leaves, so I guessed, and my hands were shaking when I measured. The teaspoon kept spilling. I'd start over, count again, lose track of whether I'd already added something or not. Reynolds leaned in. What about the dosage? The video said half for children. I heard that. I wrote it down, but when I was making it, I couldn't remember if she said half the water or half the herbs or half the steeping time. My notes didn't make sense anymore. The numbers got confused in my head. He demonstrated, his hands trembling over an imaginary cup. I thought I was being careful. I let it steep exactly 10 minutes. I set a timer for that. Let it cool for 20 minutes. Gave her the whole cup because the video showed a full cup and I thought that was the right amount for children. But you'd made it at adult strength, Karen said gently. I didn't realize until she started getting sick and I went back and watched the video again and realized I'd mixed everything wrong. Too concentrated, too strong. 3, maybe 4 times what a child her size should have had. James covered his face with his hands. I poisoned my own daughter because I couldn't measure teaspoons correctly. You didn't poison her, Karen corrected. You gave her something too concentrated because you were following internet instructions while dealing with a degenerative neurological condition that affects your cognitive processing and fine motor control. Does that make it better? James asked bitterly. It makes it understandable. Not excusable, but understandable. Reynolds spoke up. Mr. Carter, this video, did you check the credentials of this Dr. Green? James looked confused. She had a white coat. The video looked professional. There were thousands of positive comments. Reynolds did a quick search on his phone, his expression darkening. Melissa Green isn't a medical doctor. She has a PhD in nutritional science from an online university. She's been sued twice for making unverified health claims. There's a disclaimer in the video description, if you scroll down far enough, saying this is for informational purposes only and to consult your pediatrician. James stared at the screen. I didn't see that. I didn't scroll. I just watched the video and I thought I was helping. Karen closed the laptop. This is what we're dealing with. A health information crisis where desperate parents turn to social media instead of doctors because doctors cost money they don't have. And these videos, these dangerous, unregulated videos, prey on exactly that desperation. She looked at James directly. You were looking for a solution to a real problem. You found what looked like a credible answer. You tried to follow instructions while your brain was working against you. And when it went wrong, you didn't know who to call because you'd been taught that asking for help meant admitting failure. James's voice was barely audible. Is Lily going to be okay? Physically, yes. The hospital says she'll recover fully. But emotionally, psychologically, that depends on what happens next. What happens next? James asked, though he already knew the answer would hurt. Next, Karen said, we figure out if you can become the father your daughters need, with help, with treatment, with support. Or if the kindest thing we can do is find them a home where they'll be safe, while you get the medical care you should have received 2 years ago. James nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in 2 years, someone was offering help instead of judgment, but it might be too late. Chapter 9. The Mistake. Karen opened her laptop and turned it toward James. Can you show me the video you watched? James's hand shook as he typed, the cursor jumping erratically across the search bar. After 3 attempts, he found it. The video was titled Natural Cough Remedy for Children, Ancient Herbal Wisdom. It had 847,000 views and thousands of glowing comments. The thumbnail showed a smiling woman in a kitchen holding a mug of steaming tea, a cheerful child beside her. Play it, Karen said gently. The woman in the video spoke with confident authority. Hi everyone. Today I'm sharing my grandmother's recipe for children's cough relief. This has been used in my family for generations, and it works better than anything from the pharmacy. She held up bags of dried herbs. You'll need eucalyptus leaves, peppermint, ginger root, and horehound, all available at any health food store. James pointed at the screen with a trembling finger. That's what I bought. Exactly those, the woman continued. Combine 1 teaspoon of each herb in boiling water. Let it steep for 10 minutes, strain, cool to room temperature, and serve. Safe, natural, and effective. Karen paused the video. That's what you followed? I tried to. James's voice was barely audible, but my hands were shaking. The measuring spoons kept slipping, and the video went so fast. I had to keep pausing and rewinding, and I'd lose my place. I wrote it down, but my handwriting was so messy I could barely read my own notes. He pulled out his phone, screen cracked, battery at 12%, and showed Karen a photo he'd taken of his handwritten recipe. The numbers were barely legible, with multiple crossouts and corrections. See, I wrote 1 teaspoon, but it looks like it could say 1 tablespoon, and I wasn't sure if it meant 1 teaspoon total or 1 teaspoon of each, so I guessed. Karen zoomed in on the photo. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible in places. For someone with cognitive confusion, this would have been impossible to follow accurately. What did you actually put in? I think I put too much of everything, maybe 2 or 3 times what the recipe called for, and I'm not sure I let it cool enough. Lily said it was too hot, but she drank it anyway because I told her it would help. Reynolds stepped forward. Mr. Carter, did the video mention anything about dosage for different ages, weight considerations, warning signs? James shook his head. It just said, for children. Lily's a child. I thought. He pressed his palms against his eyes. I thought natural meant safe. The video had thousands of views, hundreds of comments saying it worked, people saying they'd been using this for years. How was I supposed to know it could hurt her? Karen scrolled through the video's comments section. Glowing testimonials filled the screen. This saved us a fortune in doctor bills. My kids love this tea. Works every time. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know this. But when she scrolled further, she found other comments. Buried, less liked. Please add dosage warnings. My daughter got very sick from this. You need to specify this is for older children only. This made my son throw up. Be careful with amounts. The creator had never responded to the warning comments, had never updated the video with safety information, had never acknowledged that natural doesn't always mean harmless. What happened after Lily drank it? Karen asked. James's face crumpled. She seemed okay at first, went to bed, but then, maybe an hour later, she started crying. Really crying, this awful, pained sound. Emily came to get me. Lily was burning up. Her face was red, and then she started vomiting. What did you do? I panicked. I tried to call the number from the video. There was a website, a consultation line, but it just rang and rang. No answer. It was 2 a.m. I looked up what to do for vomiting, gave her water, but she couldn't keep it down. I wanted to call 911, but what? The ambulance cost $1,200. I don't have $1,200. I don't have $100. His voice rose with desperation, and I was terrified that if I called, they'd take the girls away, that they'd see what a failure I'd become. So I stayed with her, held her hair back, tried to keep her comfortable, told myself it would pass. And Emily? Emily helped. She always helps. She brought wet washcloths, held Lily's hand, sang to her. A 10-year-old was more capable than I was. At some point, I fell asleep on the couch. I didn't mean to. My body shut down. And when I woke up, they were gone. Karen closed the laptop slowly. Mr. Carter, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you did was dangerous. The dosage was wrong, the preparation was wrong, and delaying medical care made everything worse. Lily could have been seriously hurt. I know. Tears streamed down James's face. But, Karen continued, this wasn't malicious. This was a desperately ill man following bad information from the internet because he couldn't access real medical care. This was a father trying to help his child with the only tools he had available, which were completely inadequate tools, but tools nonetheless. She leaned back in her chair. The question now isn't what you did, it's what we do next. Chapter 10. When nobody asks. By late afternoon, word had spread through Millbrook like wildfire. The Carter girls had been taken by Child Protective Services. The father was at the police station. Something terrible had happened. And suddenly, everyone who'd seen nothing for 2 years was seeing everything. At Maplewood Community Church, an emergency meeting convened. Pastor Williams stood before 15 congregation members, his expression heavy with guilt. James Carter hasn't attended services in 18 months. His wife was buried from this church. His daughters were baptized here, and we let him disappear. He refused help, someone protested. We tried right after Sarah died. We tried for 6 months, Williams interrupted. Maybe 8, and then we stopped. We told ourselves he knew where to find us if he needed anything. But what if he didn't know how to ask? What if he was too ashamed, too confused, too overwhelmed? Mrs. Patterson, who'd led the original meal train, spoke up quietly. I drove by their house 3 weeks ago. The lawn was completely overgrown. I thought about stopping, but I was running late for my grandson's soccer game. I told myself I'd check on them later. But you didn't, Williams said gently. No, I didn't. At Emily's school, Principal Morrison called an emergency staff meeting. Emily Carter has missed 23 days this year, she said, pulling up records. 23 days in a single school year. Did anyone report this? Her teacher, Mrs. Anderson, raised her hand reluctantly. I documented it, sent letters home, but I never followed up when I didn't get responses. I just assumed there must be reasons. What reasons? I don't know. I didn't ask. Mrs. Anderson's voice cracked. She always seemed fine when she was here. Tired maybe, but fine. And she's such a good student when she's present. I told myself if there was really a problem, someone would say something. The school counselor added, I saw her in the cafeteria 2 weeks ago. She was eating crackers and an apple for lunch, nothing else. I made a mental note to check on her lunch account, but then I got busy with testing season and I forgot. Morrison closed the file. So we have a child missing nearly a month of school, clearly struggling, and nobody made a phone call. Nobody knocked on a door. Nobody asked a single question beyond, "Where's your homework?" The room fell silent. At the health clinic on Oak Street, Dr. Patel reviewed records. James Carter came in once 11 months ago with symptoms consistent with neurological disorder. I gave him a referral to a specialist. He never followed up. His assistant asked, "Did you call to check on him?" We sent a reminder letter. He didn't respond. "Did you follow up after that?" Patel closed the file. "No, we have 300 patients and 2 staff members. We can't chase down everyone who doesn't follow through, even when the symptoms suggest something serious. Especially then," Patel said quietly, "because the people who need help most are often the least able to navigate getting it, and we tell ourselves that's their responsibility, not ours." At the grocery store, manager Tom Chen pulled up loyalty card records. The Carter family account showed a stark pattern. Purchases had declined drastically over 2 years. What used to be $150, $200 weekly shopping trips had become $20, $30 purchases every other week. Bread, peanut butter, cereal, milk, the same items over and over. "Did anyone notice this?" Chen asked his staff. Sarah, who usually worked register 4, spoke up. "I noticed Emily comes in alone a lot, always counting exact change, but I figured that's just, how they teach kids responsibility these days. Did you ever ask if everything was okay?" "No. It's not really my place, is it?" Chen thought about that. Maybe it should be. Back at the station, Karen compiled her findings into a single devastating report. She titled it, "Systemic Failure, a Community Case Study." The document listed church stopped checking in after 8 months, school documented absences but never investigated why, medical clinic provided referral but no follow-up support, neighbors noticed signs but assumed others were helping, grocery store saw declining purchases but didn't question social services, no calls received until crisis occurred. At the bottom, Karen wrote a single line that would eventually make its way to state-level policy discussions. "This child walked into a police station asking for help because every adult system designed to catch families before they fall had already failed." She closed the report and looked at Officer Reynolds. Everyone saw pieces. Nobody connected the dots. And now we're calling James Carter neglectful when an entire community neglected his family for 2 years. Reynolds nodded slowly. "So what do we do now?" Karen stood, gathering her files. "Now, we do what we should have done 2 years ago. We show up, we ask questions, we offer help, and we don't accept 'I'm fine' as an answer when everything visible says otherwise." She paused at the door. "And we make sure Emily and Lily know that when they ask for help, someone finally listened." Outside, the sun was setting over Millbrook, the same town that had failed to see, the same town that now couldn't look away. Chapter 11, The Hearing, Part 1. 3 weeks had passed. 3 weeks of Emily and Lily living with a foster family named the Johnsons, kind people with a warm house and a dog named Biscuit. 3 weeks of supervised visits with Dad at the community center, where they'd color and talk and pretend everything was normal for exactly 1 hour before time ran out. 3 weeks of wondering if she'd done the right thing. Now Emily sat in a small conference room at the Department of Child and Family Services, her legs swinging from a chair too tall for her. Karen Mills sat beside her. Across the table were people with official titles: a family court judge, 2 social workers, a child advocate, and a representative from the prosecutor's office. And Dad, sitting at the far end of the table with a lawyer the state had provided. He looked different, cleaner, more present. He'd shaved. His hand still trembled, but less than before. He was trying. Judge Patricia Morrison, a woman with gray hair and reading glasses, spoke first. Her voice was firm but not unkind. "This is a dependency hearing to determine the safety and welfare of Emily and Lily Carter. We're here to decide whether reunification with their father is appropriate, and if so, under what conditions." She looked directly at Emily. "Emily, you don't have to speak today if you don't want to, but if you'd like to, we're here to listen." Emily's throat felt tight. "Can I ask something first?" "Of course. Is my dad in trouble? Like jail trouble?" Judge Morrison glanced at the prosecutor, who shook her head slightly. "No, Emily. Your father isn't facing criminal charges. This hearing is about what's best for you and your sister, not about punishing anyone." Emily's shoulders dropped with relief. "However," the judge continued, "we do need to understand what happened and whether it's safe for you to return home. Mr. Carter has completed 3 weeks of court-ordered services, medical evaluation, counseling, parenting education. We've reviewed reports from his doctors, his counselors, and from community members. But the most important voice in this room is yours." Emily looked at her father. He gave her a small nod, not telling her what to say, just telling her it was okay to speak. "Okay," Emily whispered. One of the social workers, a woman named Ms. Patterson, leaned forward forward gently. Emily, can you tell us why you went to the police station that morning? What were you hoping would happen? Emily took a breath. I was hoping someone would help us. Not take us away, just help. Help with what? With everything. Lily was sick and Dad didn't know what to do. And he's been sick too, but he didn't tell anyone because we don't have money for doctors. And the house was getting messy, and we were running out of food, and I was trying to take care of Lily and Dad and go to school and do everything. But I'm only 10. Her voice cracked. I just wanted someone to notice that we needed help before something really bad happened. Did you think your father was dangerous? Ms. Patterson asked. No. Emily's answer was immediate. He's never hurt us. He would never hurt us. He got lost. Like he forgot how to be Dad after Mom died, and nobody helped him remember. Judge Morrison made notes. Emily, in the 3 weeks since this began, you've had supervised visits with your father. How have those visits been? Good. He's more there. Like he listens when I talk. He remembers things. He doesn't zone out as much. Emily looked at James. He's getting better. Are you afraid to go home? Emily considered the question carefully. I'm not afraid of Dad. I'm afraid of things being like they were before, where it was just us trying to survive and nobody checking if we were okay. I don't want to be the mom again. I want to be the kid. The room fell silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. The child advocate spoke for the first time. Emily, that's a very wise thing to say, and I want you to know, if you do go home, it won't be like before. There will be people checking on you, helping your dad, making sure you get to be a kid. Promise? The advocate looked at Judge Morrison, who nodded. Promise. Karen squeezed Emily's hand gently. Emily, is there anything else you want to say? Anything you want the judge to know? Emily turned to face her father directly. Her voice was small but steady. I don't want a new family. I want my family. But I need my dad to be healthy, and I need people to help him stay healthy, because we can't do it alone anymore. James's eyes filled with tears. His lips formed the words, I'm sorry, though no sound came out. Judge Morrison set down her pen. Thank you, Emily. That took a lot of courage. She looked around the room. We're going to take a brief recess, and then we'll hear from Mr. Carter and review the recommendations from all parties. Emily, you can wait with Ms. Mills in the family room. As Emily stood to leave, she looked back at her father one more time. He was crying silently, his shaking hands pressed against his face. But he was there, present, awake. And for the first time in 2 years, Emily thought maybe, just maybe, they might actually be okay. 2 weeks had passed since Emily sat on that sidewalk waiting for someone to notice. 2 weeks of living with a foster family, the Morgans, who were kind and had a dog named Biscuit, and a guest room with clean sheets that smelled like lavender. 2 weeks of supervised visits with Dad at the community center, where they colored and talked and pretended everything was normal for exactly 1 hour before time was up. 2 weeks of wondering if she'd destroyed her family by trying to save it. Now Emily sat outside Conference Room B at the Department of Child and Family Services, her legs swinging nervously, her hands gripping the armrests of a chair that was still too big for her. Karen Mills sat beside her, dressed professionally but warmly. Remember, Emily, you don't have to say anything you don't want to say. This isn't a courtroom. It's just people trying to understand what happened so we can figure out what happens next. Will Dad be there? Yes, and me and Officer Reynolds and Dr. Chen from the hospital and a family services coordinator named Ms. Brooks. That's all. Just people who want to help. And what if they decide we can't go home? Karen's honesty had always been one of the things Emily appreciated, even when it hurt. That's possible. But whatever they decide, it'll be because they want you and Lily to be safe and healthy. That's the only thing anyone in that room cares about. The door opened. Ms. Brooks, a black woman with gray-streaked hair and reading glasses on a chain, smiled gently. We're ready for you, Emily. The conference room was smaller than Emily expected. A long table, comfortable chairs, a window that looked out over the parking lot. No judge's bench, no American flag, no gavels, just people. Dad sat at the far end of the table, and Emily's heart broke a little. He'd shaved. His clothes were clean and pressed, borrowed probably because she'd never seen that shirt before. He looked more awake than he had in months, but his eyes were still sad. So sad. When he saw her, he tried to smile. It didn't quite work, but Emily could see him trying. Hi, Em, he said softly. Hi, Dad. Ms. Brooks gestured to a chair. Emily, why don't you sit here next to Ms. Mills? We're going to talk for a little bit, ask some questions, and try to understand what's been happening in your family. Does that sound okay? Emily nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Dr. Chen spoke first, her voice professional but kind. I've reviewed Lily's medical records. She's made a full recovery, no lasting damage. She's healthy, gaining weight, and responding well to treatment for her cough, which, by the way, was bronchitis that needed antibiotics, not herbal tea. A few people smiled at the gentle joke. James didn't. Officer Reynolds added, We've completed our investigation. There's no evidence of intentional harm. What we found was a family in crisis, without adequate resources or support, making desperate decisions. Ms. Brooks looked at the file in front of her. Mr. Carter has completed 2 weeks of intensive counseling, started treatment for his neurological medical condition, which has been diagnosed as early-stage Parkinson's disease, and has been attending parenting classes and job placement services. She looked at James. "How are you managing, Mr. Carter?" "Better," James said quietly. "The medication helps with the tremors. The counseling helps with everything else. And I'm learning how to ask for help, learning what I should have learned 2 years ago." "And the job placement?" "I start part-time work at the library next week, shelving books. It's not much, but it's something, and it comes with health insurance after 90 days. Ms. Brooks made notes. "That's good progress, significant progress actually, for 2 weeks. Then she turned to Emily, and the room seemed to hold its breath. "Emily, I've read all the reports. I've talked to your teacher, your neighbors, the doctors, but I want to hear from you directly. Can you tell me, in your own words, why you walked to 5th and Main that morning?" Emily looked at her father, at Karen, at all the adults in the room who were finally paying attention, and she knew that whatever she said next would determine everything. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, and she began to speak. Chapter 12. The Most Important Voice. Emily's voice was small at first, but steady. "I walked to 5th and Main because I didn't know what else to do." Ms. Brooks leaned forward slightly, her expression gentle. "Can you tell us more about that?" Emily took a breath. She'd practiced this with Karen, but sitting here, with Dad watching, with everyone listening, made the words harder to find. "Lily was really sick. She'd been coughing for days, and it was getting worse. I told Dad we should take her to the doctor, but he said we couldn't afford it. He said we'd go next week. But he'd been saying next week for a long time." James's hands were flat on the table, trembling despite the medication. "So Dad found a video online about natural remedies. He was trying so hard. I could see him watching it over and over, writing things down. But his hands were shaking really badly, and he kept getting confused about the measurements." Dr. Chen made a note but didn't interrupt. "He made the tea and gave it to Lily, and at first I thought maybe it would work. Maybe the video was right. But then she got really hot and she started throwing up, and Dad just froze. He kept saying, 'It's supposed to work. It's supposed to work,' but it wasn't working." Emily's voice cracked. "I wanted to call 911, but Dad said we couldn't afford the ambulance, and I didn't know if that was true or if he was just scared. So I just stayed with Lily and tried to help and hoped she'd be okay." "When did you decide to leave?" Karen asked gently. "When Dad fell asleep on the couch. It was maybe 4 in the morning. Lily had finally stopped crying, but she was still so hot, and I was scared. I thought if I waited until morning and nothing changed, something really bad might happen." The room was absolutely silent. "So I got Lily dressed, wrapped us both in blankets, and we left. I didn't know where to go. The hospital is too far to walk with Lily, but I knew Officer Reynolds drives through downtown in the mornings. I'd seen him before, so we just sat there and waited." Ms. Brooks's expression was difficult to read. "Emily, I need to ask you something important. When you told Officer Reynolds that your dad gave something to her and she got worse, did you know how that would sound?" Emily shook her head. "No, I was just trying to explain what happened. I didn't know everyone would think. I didn't mean for it to sound like he hurt her on purpose. He didn't. He would never." Her voice rose with desperate certainty. "Dad's not a bad person. He's not mean. He never yelled at us or hit us or did anything scary. He's sick and sad, and he's been trying so hard to take care of us by himself, but he doesn't know how." James made a sound, something between a sob and a breath. "After Mom died, everything changed. Dad used to sing in the kitchen and help me with homework and read Lily bedtime stories. But then Mom was gone, and his job was gone, and he started forgetting things. His hands started shaking. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping." Emily looked directly at her father now, tears streaming down her face. "And I tried to help. I really tried. I made breakfast and dressed Lily and reminded Dad about everything, but I'm only 10. I didn't know how to fix what was wrong. I didn't know how to make him better." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I wasn't trying to get Dad in trouble. I was trying to get him help, because I love him, because Lily needs him, because I need him." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I just wanted someone to notice that we were drowning. I wanted someone to see what I'd been seeing for 2 years, that Dad was disappearing and I didn't know how to bring him back." The silence in the room was profound. Finally, Emily said the words that had been building in her chest for weeks. "I don't want to lose my dad. I want him to get better. I want us to be a family again. Not the way we were before. I know we can't go back to that, but a different kind of family. One where Dad knows how to ask for help, where people actually listen when he does." She looked around the table at all the adults who were finally paying attention. "Is that possible? Can we do that?" Ms. Brooks removed her glasses and set them on the table. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Emily, what you did that morning, walking to that sidewalk, asking for help when you were scared and tired and didn't know what else to do, that was one of the bravest things I've ever seen. You didn't destroy your family. You saved it." James couldn't hold it together anymore. He put his face in his hands and wept, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from somewhere he'd been holding closed for 2 years. Karen reached over and squeezed Emily's hand. Officer Reynolds, standing by the door, turned away away and wiped his eyes. And Dr. Chen, who'd seen hundreds of cases in her career, thought, this is why we do this work, for moments like this, for children brave enough to speak truth when adults have failed to listen. Ms. Brooks gave everyone a moment, then spoke again. Yes, Emily, that kind of family is possible, and we're going to help you build it. Chapter 13. Help arrives before it's too late. 3 months later, Emily stood on the porch of the house she'd lived in her whole life, holding Lily's hand. The grass was cut. Mr. Peterson had been mowing it weekly, refusing to accept payment. The shutters had been painted, a church volunteer project. The mailbox no longer overflowed with past due notices. Small things, important things. Dad opened the door, and Emily noticed the changes immediately. He'd gained weight, the healthy kind, from regular meals that neighbors took turns providing. His hands still trembled, but less. The medication was working. His eyes were clearer, more present. Welcome home, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It wasn't perfect. The house still held memories of hard times. The couch where he'd slept too many desperate nights. The kitchen where he'd made that terrible tea. Those ghosts didn't disappear just because things were better now. But there were new things too. A medication organizer on the counter, clearly labeled for each day. A calendar on the wall covered in color-coded appointments. Doctor visits, counseling sessions, library shifts, family dinners with the Hendersons. A bulletin board with phone numbers. Pastor Williams, Karen Mills, the crisis hotline, Mrs. Martinez. I made spaghetti, Dad said. Your favorite. Mrs. Martinez taught me her recipe, and Pastor Williams is coming by later to help me practice French braids because he gestured helplessly at Lily's lopsided ponytail. I'm still not very good at hair. Emily laughed, a real laugh that surprised even her. They ate dinner together at the kitchen table. Dad asked about school. Emily told him about the science fair project she was working on with Tommy Henderson. Lily chattered about Biscuit the dog and how the Morgans said they could visit any time. After dinner, Dad pulled out a notebook, the same one Karen had given him for family meetings. Okay, he said. Good things first. Emily, you go. Good thing. You remembered to pack my lunch every day this week. Dad smiled. Good thing. The library gave me full-time hours starting next month, which means better health insurance. Lily, your turn. Puppies, Lily declared, because she was 3 and priorities were simple. Hard things, Dad continued. I'll go first. I had a bad day Tuesday. The tremors were worse and I felt confused and tired, but instead of hiding it, I called Pastor Williams. He came over, helped me organize my medications, and stayed until I felt better. Emily appreciated the honesty. Hard thing. I still get scared sometimes that things will go back to how they were. Me too, Dad admitted. But that's why we have this. He tapped the bulletin board. All these people who said they want to help, and this time, I'm letting them. Later, Dad tucked Lily into bed, reading her favorite story about the moon. Then he came to Emily's room and sat on the edge of her bed like he used to do before everything fell apart. Em, I need to say something. His voice was serious. I can't give you back the 2 years you lost. I can't undo you having to grow up too fast, or take care of your sister when that should have been my job, or walk to a police station because I was too proud and too sick to ask for help. Dad, let me finish. He took her hand gently. But I can promise you this. I'm not that person anymore. I'm getting help. I'm taking my medication. I'm going to counseling. And when things get hard, because they will get hard sometimes, I won't hide. I'll ask for help. That's what you taught me, Em. You taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do. Emily felt tears building. I'm proud of you, Dad. His eyes widened. You're proud of me? Yeah, because you didn't give up. You could have, but you didn't. After he left, Emily lay in her own bed, in her own room, listening to familiar sounds. Dad doing dishes, the television on low, Lily's soft breathing through the wall. It wasn't the fairy tale ending where everything was magically fixed. There would still be doctor appointments and check-ins with Karen. There would still be hard days and setbacks and struggles, but they weren't alone anymore. Emily looked at the stuffed rabbit Karen had given her that first day at the station, the one she'd kept even after dozens of other gifts. Outside her window, the neighborhood was settling into evening. Mr. Peterson's porch light glowed softly. The Martinez house had music playing. Mrs. Henderson's car pulled into her driveway, home from book club, a small town where people knew each other's names, where a family had almost fallen apart in plain sight, but also where people had learned to pay attention, where neighbors had learned that I'm fine sometimes means I'm drowning, where a community had learned that preventing tragedy is everyone's responsibility. Emily closed her eyes, finally allowing herself something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the naive hope that everything would be perfect, but the realistic hope that they would be okay, that when things got hard, they wouldn't face it alone, that the voice of one 10-year-old girl asking for help on a quiet sidewalk at dawn had changed something fundamental in Millbrook, and maybe, just maybe, had taught a whole